Welcome back, GED scholars, for part 2 of the RLA Extended Writing Response Rubric. Part 1 was all about Trait 1, creation of arguments and use of evidence. Please check out that video so you understand what they are looking for when it comes to your writing response, because a big part of that is using text-based argument, and we explore that concept in part 1 video. But in this video, we are going to discuss Trait 2. If you do not have this rubric, you can find it in two places. You can find it in the description box below, or you can go to GED.com and in the search box type rubric. After typing rubric, you will notice there is one in Spanish and one in English. Well, actually, there are two in English. Either one is okay. If you are going to write in Spanish, that means you're taking the entire exam in Spanish. So just be mindful of that. For more information about taking the exam in Spanish, you're going to want to check out information that they have in GED.com. So for trait 2, we are going to focus, as I mentioned in the first video, on the row that says 2 points, because it doesn't make sense for you to aim to get any less. I firmly urge that you practice. There are practice prompts that you can use to help you get better at your writing. Please make sure you check out the first video as well, where I discuss how much time you're given to complete this task. I'm going to read all 5 bullet points at once, and then we're going to the next page where we are going to see the notes or the annotations that go with these letters that are after each bullet point. If you go to the first video, I explained the setup of why there are 6 pages, but the rubric is only on 3. So trait 2 reads, development of ideas and organizational structure. Contains ideas that are well developed and generally logical. Most ideas are elaborated upon. Contains a sensible progression of ideas with clear connections between details and main points. Establishes an organizational structure that conveys the message and purpose of the response. Applies transitional devices appropriately. Establishes and maintains a formal style and appropriate tone that demonstrates awareness of the audience and purpose of the task. Chooses specific words to express ideas clearly. So that's a lot of information, 5 bullet points, but they're basically telling you is that you can't just say side A is stronger than side B because I said so. And they're also saying you can't say side A is stronger than side B because of A, B, and C and stop there. They want you to elaborate on your idea. Why did you bring up that piece of evidence? What does it matter, and how is it stronger than the other side's piece of evidence? For example, in the daylight savings time prompts, both sides in their first paragraphs bring up research. Research in the 1970s versus research from 2007. And yes, it's well past 2007, but between the two passages, who has more relevant information? And so that might be an idea that you're presenting. You might say arguments against DST is stronger. They have more relevant research from 2007. And look at what that research showed compared to what the research from the 1970s showed. And you can use those two against one another. So let's go down to the notes that you'll find on page 4. E has to do with the title. It says the 5 bullets or dimensions in trait 1 must be considered together to determine the score of any individual response. Letter F. The first dimension relates to the depth and breadth of explanations. So how much are you talking and how deep do you go into that information? While support for ideas should come from the source text, that's text-based evidence I shared in part 1 video, because that's where it talks about text-based evidence, fully developed ideas are often extended with additional evidence. Folks, they're not asking you to write a novel, but they are asking you to add a little bit more. It explain why you picked that piece of evidence and why that piece of evidence is stronger than the other side's evidence. Letter G. Second dimension focuses on how effectively the response builds from one idea to the next, as well as the degree in which details and central ideas are linked. So basically, are you staying on topic? Are you able to go from reason A that this side is stronger than the other is because of research, and you elaborate, are you able to transition well to the next reason you believe side A is stronger than side B, or vice versa, side B is stronger than side A? And all of that is going to relate to the evidence that you located. Letter H, the third dimension relates to how well the response is organized. Though paragraphs may lend structure to many responses, it is possible for a well organized, logical, non paragraphed response to receive a high score. So they're basically saying that if you decided to only write one big paragraph, there's a chance that you could get a high score. The reason why people use paragraphs is that paragraphs allow you to break up those ideas into individual ideas. And we know how paragraphs relate to each other because writers are using transitional words and phrases. If you have no idea what transitional words and phrases are, please make sure that you Google transitional words and phrases. There's a great website called OWL. It is Purdue University's online writing website. You can check out the information that they share there on grammar, or you can go to Khan Academy. Khan Academy is another great tool to use. For those of you who have children, if your children are struggling or you want to progress them through what they're learning in school a little quicker, Khan Academy has unbelievable resources that you can use to help yourself and your children. So check out their website. There's a link in the description box below. J talks about the fourth dimension is associated with how well the response demonstrates an understanding of audience and purpose. Responses that score highly in this dimension will establish and maintain a formal style and objective tone while attending to the norms and conventions of argumentative writing. Folks, what they're saying here is that you're aware that you're not writing something for your friends, that you're not using slang, you're not using language that you might use in a text message, but that you're mindful of this is an exam that's being graded that has to do with me getting my GED. So I better be formal about the word choice, how I present that word choice. I've even gone so far as to tell my students don't use contractions, don't use those words like won't and shouldn't, spell it out. Could not, would not. That's actually something I learned when I was in school, was that when it comes to academic writing, you don't use contractions. Moving on to letter K, the fifth dimension. Fifth dimension focuses on word choice. Once again, you know who your audience is. Effective word choice does not necessarily suggest that students must employ a great deal of advanced vocabulary. Folks, please do not use words when you don't know the definition or the meaning of that word, let alone how to use that word in a sentence. Advanced vocabulary used correctly is often associated with a higher score on trait 2, but responses that reflect a precision in word choice are just as likely to score well in this dimension. So folks, I know that seems like a lot of information and a lot to be shared quickly, but as I mentioned earlier, it says it in the title, Trait 2, Development of Ideas and Organizational Structure. Are you able to not only read the prompts and locate all of the evidence that you could potentially use in your paper, but can you elaborate it? Can you use this evidence to prove your point? One side is stronger than the other. There is a template that I am sharing in the description box below. Folks, this is to help you understand how you can organize your paper, organize your ideas. This is not something set in stone either. We read in the notes that it's possible to only have one paragraph and score a high score. I would suggest that instead you think about using multiple paragraphs to help write your paper. So you're able to transition your ideas clearly from one idea to the next. And if you don't know transitional words and phrases, please make sure that you check out OWL or Khan Academy. So, trait 2 in a nutshell is, can you express your ideas in a logical, organized manner where whoever's reading your response understands why you took the stance of this side is stronger than the other side. I always suggest that you read the directions for each prompt, even though you'll notice that they are very similar, because the prompts will give you a heads up, a preview of what you're about to read. For example, daylight savings time prompt says the article presents arguments from both supporters and critics of daylight savings time who disagree about the practice's impact on energy consumption and safety. So then you know from reading just the prompts that, hey, they're going to talk about daylight savings time and energy consumption and safety. And then they say use relevant and specific evidence from the article to support your response. That's why I share in part 1 that you need to highlight whenever you see evidence. The best way for you to study for the writing response is to practice. As I mentioned, there are 3 prompts in the description box below: the daylight savings prompt, taxation and revenue, and then one on diamond mining. So use those as tools. I also share with my students that the first 3 prompts, they should complete them untimed. When it comes to test date, you only get 45 minutes, but when you're practicing, it's best to do it untimed until you're in the motion of, this is what I need to do in order to write the best paper I can write, and I can receive the most points as possible on the extended writing response portion of the RLA exam. Thanks for watching, GED scholars, and make sure you keep your head up. You've got this.